Welcome to the Making Waves at Sea Level podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we will explore the interesting stories of business executives, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders who are shaking things up and growing their companies. It is time to make some waves. Now here's your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Making Waves at Sea Level. Thank you so much for pulling your chair up to the cool kids table. As I used to say at the beginning of the show, when the show used to be called Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. But this year we made a little bit of a pivot, and we are all about how individuals and companies can really make waves and have an impact on their industry and the world. Before I get started with today's episode, I have to thank the first sponsor of today's show, and that is Spectrum Reach. And I am really appreciative that they have decided to sponsor this show for another couple months. So we're with them, they're with us, and I will tell you, at Spectrum Reach, they know three things better than anybody else. Number one, they know how to harness the power of multi-screen advertising. Number two, they offer a simplified one-stop shop destination for marketing solutions. And number three, they know what makes our cities and towns tick because they're our neighbors. They are the most trusted media partner in America. And if you want to learn more, go to spectrumreach.com. So today, I'm going to talk to somebody about how do you scale your business. I might title this episode Scale, Scale, Scale. And he has built two businesses, not one, but two businesses that help people who are in the Amazon and e-commerce and digital agency world do exactly that. So we're going to talk a lot about process because that's one of the most important things that you can do. So today we have Yoni Kozminski, and he is calling in for this interview all the way from Tel Aviv, Israel. Not the first time we've gone international, but it's always a lot of fun to talk to people who have a global aspect to their business. He is the founder and CEO of two companies, Ascala and of Multiply Me, and I'll get him to tell us a little bit about both of those companies and what they do. Hey, Yoni, welcome to the show.
Wow, what an incredible introduction. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and sitting and chatting with you again. Yeah, fantastic. So I'll dive right into it. I'll tell you a little bit about both companies and give you a little bit of background as to kind of why we're sitting here today. So Multiply Me and Ascala actually only came about a year ago. And today, sitting talking to you guys, we're actually at nearly 100 employees. So when we're talking about scale and how to do it quickly,
So 100 employees built in the last year between two companies in the middle of a global pandemic. Awesome.
Yeah. So how we actually went about doing that, or what each of these businesses do, is probably a better starting point. So with Multiply Me, that really is a way to enable e-commerce, Amazon, and digital agencies to leverage offshore talent, where we do everything from the executive search all the way through to the HR function. We're here to really demystify a lot of the challenges and get access to low cost, high quality talent. And when we're talking Ascala, which really was an organic growth, we took a team of now 12 ex-EY and Accenture consultants out of the Philippines, built our own process methodology on how do you actually approach fixing scale inside of businesses. So that's everything from process improvement all the way through to building your org strat and your personnel strategy to finance. I mean, we really touch on a lot of different areas.
So give me a little bit of your background. If you've been doing this for a year, what did you do before?
So before this, I spent about a decade in creative advertising, digital marketing. So Tom, you're kind enough to say that I'm calling in from Tel Aviv, Israel, which is the truth, but I'm sure people sitting listening in are probably a little confused because I don't have an Israeli accent.
Yeah, it's not an Israeli accent. It sounds a little more Australian to me, but I could be wrong.
You are not wrong. And I'm glad that you can still hear it, because one of my biggest concerns in life really is whether it goes away. So
I've always wondered, like, if I moved to Australia, I always wonder if I moved to Australia, would people do Americans have, is there like an American accent that you guys all mimic and make fun of?
Absolutely. Are you serious? Yeah, definitely. You got it. Clearly, my American accent isn't good enough.
No. That I got the sarcasm in that. That was all good.
Okay. So grew up in Australia, worked in digital marketing over there. And I used to work with clients like I worked with Mercedes-Benz and Mondelez Kraft Foods, which absolutely no one in the US has heard of, which is devastating for me because it's one of the biggest confectionery companies in the world. If you haven't tried a cream egg, I highly recommend that you do so. So I worked in the digital agency space for about 5 years over there, delivering everything from strategy to content to the works, working with developers, SEO professionals, and the likes of. And then I actually made it all the way over to the US, where I spent 3 years in Los Angeles at a creative ad agency in Hollywood. How cliche, but it was amazing. If the guys at Something Massive are listening, bit of love for them. But over there, I was doing digital strategy as well for the likes of Sony and MasterCard, Medtronic, and a bunch of larger companies where I was always in a smaller agency. So I was the 10th employee to join the first agency. We grew to about 35, and I would have been about the 12th in the second. We grew to somewhere about the same. So looking at large-scale enterprise from the eyes of the SME kind of equation. And then after all of that, came to Israel, joined an Amazon business. And in a year, I took it from 2 million to 5 million. And the way I approached that was building a team out of the Philippines. And what that actually looked like was a team that was significantly more affordable, delivering the same, I would argue, better quality work than some of the stuff I've ever done before. And that really kind of opened my eyes to understanding that if we could do this for one company that was absolutely game-changing for them, it could be absolutely life-changing for anyone that we can deliver this for. So, I think that the proof is in the pudding. And, a year on from that brainchild of an idea, we've helped over 50 companies already get to that point. When we talk about scale, when we talk about staffing, it's really, we're living that reality that, was really the idea behind both companies.
So when we talk on the show about making waves, the way I sort of define that is people who are shaking up their company, their industry, and certainly who are looking for growth. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do you make waves for the companies that you serve?
Absolutely. So I'm going to focus more so on Escala. I feel like the consulting business and that arm of what we're delivering is something that is a little bit more kind of shaking up an industry or something that's been around for a very long time. So I'm sure most people are familiar with the likes of Accenture and Ernst & Young and Boston Consulting Group and, the top tier incredible companies that are helping drive a lot of the process improvement and just overall strategy of how to grow big companies and how to make things efficient and work the way they should. So we've essentially turned that model on its head in that we're looking to start with lower cost, high quality talent that have worked in these companies to create access for companies that need it most. So our focus is on the SME market. We're not trying to help Apple make a few $100 billion more money. It's probably a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but they're making enough. Now, what we're doing is we're taking all the things that we have learned from their process improvement and the methodology that they'd baked in and really watered it down to what is much more relevant to companies of, the size of 50, 100, 200 individuals and made it also financially possible. So how we go about it is we actually look into companies and, I think the word audit is a little bit over the top and can feel a little bit daunting for people. Also the word consultant and consulting, terrifying words. So we call it an assessment where we walk into a business and we really start to understand, well, what are the pain points? What's actually happening inside of the company? And a lot of that comes down to businesses of this size where most of it lives within inside either the founder or the owner or key personnel's head. And there's nothing more scary when you talk about your livelihood and your income, knowing that if you don't turn up to work tomorrow, then there is no more work and there is no more opportunity. So what we're really trying to do is to get in the heads of key personnel, leaders in the business and put it down on paper. So how we actually help with scale is, as a first step, is we help document the process and we actually define, well, what's actually happening in your business so that you can start to not just have it as the sole owner person who needs to know everything that's going on, but start to actually permeate that out through all the key people that need to deliver on what they need to deliver on. I would say that's the first stage is the understanding of what's happening in the business.
And you've been focused on companies that are in the Amazon space and e-commerce. When maybe a lot of people don't understand when you say companies that are focused on working through Amazon resellers, what does that even mean?
Yeah, it's a crazy space.
I mean,
Tom.
there's a whole world of people who are making a lot of money selling through Amazon, and I think a lot of people who are listening are like, "You mean like used books or what?"
Yeah, it's you know what? There's no way Jeff Bezos could have ever imagined what his brainchild of selling books online would have created. I mean, the number of jobs that are created just to sell on Amazon, I mean, it would be in the tens of millions if I had to guess. And really what's happened, and I think one of the key points in time to be aware of with Amazon is when 2014, and if you look at kind of the hockey stick graph that exists inside of Amazon, 2014 was the big shift. That's when FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, came into effect. So what that meant is that every single mom and pop owner of a business that had a unique or great product could now distribute and drive traffic to everyone. So to be clear, people are making millions and millions of dollars by selling some random product like this little glasses cloth. You can't even believe the numbers that you're seeing. So, you know, when we talk about FBA sellers, Amazon, private label, what that really means is that people have great product ideas or they're sourcing them from certain suppliers and Amazon provides them access. They almost, I think it's now potentially even more than 50% of every dollar spent online in the US goes towards Amazon. So, you know, you have to be in it to win it, and Amazon is just going to continue to exponentially grow.
So why did you focus on those companies as sort of your target market?
Well, my personal experience has been for over a decade now in the digital space, and after stepping into Amazon, and no disrespect to Amazon sellers, but after doing the hard yards and honestly working so hard to build brands in the e-commerce space, which I still work with a lot of e-commerce sellers, and I say there's a lot of value. You don't really own the customer like you do in e-commerce versus Amazon, where it's Amazon's customer. The amount of traffic and the conversion rates that Amazon can deliver will take you, you know, in some cases it's not even possible. So they really facilitate the buying market at the purchase decision. I mean, when was the last time you went on Amazon and you weren't actually looking to buy something? The reality is now 80% of Amazon customers or Amazon Prime customers actually start their search for whatever product they're looking for on Amazon. So you may encounter your entire experience just inside of the platform.
So the last episode that I did, if people go back one episode, we talked a lot about processes and why processes matter. So why is the processes you bring to these companies, why is it so important for them to scale?
Well, if we look at the DNA of the typical Amazon seller, a lot of them, like I was saying, you're seeing traffic that you've never seen before. You're seeing conversions that you've never seen before. You're seeing growth that you've never seen before. So what ends up happening is a little side hustle ends up being your prime project, and not only a prime business, but you need to build a team all of a sudden. So what Amazon has really unlocked and created is that people are growing faster than they actually understand how to build the infrastructure, the team, the processes. And so, you know, it makes sense that these are some of the businesses that we can really help most. And, you know, I mean, I'm talking insane things here, Tom. I'm talking about, you know, companies that decided to just dabble on the Amazon space, and they're doing sometimes 8 figures inside of a year, 2 years. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. So, you know, these are the people that need it most.
So is this something that, like, if people know nothing about it, they could get into? You said that people are going from zero to big numbers inside of a year. So I know nothing about it. I mean, what would I do to get into that world?
So to get in that world, there's a few different routes you could take. And it also depends kind of how serious you are about it and where you want to take it to. I would say that there's 2 approaches. One is you start to trial your hand. You do your first, you know, you source a product, you start to actually sell on Amazon, you casually go about it until, you know, things start to tip. Or you take the, you know, what I would call more of a serious or professional approach where you say, you know what, I've got a great product idea. I've done the research on Amazon. I understand what keywords people are looking for. I understand what products exist and what's missing in the market and how I can actually drive traffic. And you go big or you go home, and you really do a big product run, and you understand, you know, when we talk about Amazon, the launch, the first 90 days is some of the most important days that you can have with any new product. And I would say, in my experience, it's not about making a profit or making a ton of money in that first period. You need to invest in the beast that is Amazon. They need to identify and understand that your product is exactly what people are searching for and that people genuinely love it. So, I mean, I could talk to you about this for days and days, but just to kind of give you an insight, there's 3 key factors that you look at with an Amazon product launch, and that's in-stock inventory. So Amazon, like any company, just like they had the whole, I don't know if you saw the social dilemma on Netflix recently, where all of a sudden everyone's up in arms because Facebook's trying to keep you on Facebook more often. I mean, shocking, right? But it's the same with Amazon. If you've got inventory that they can sell, they make a commission or a clip on every single sale. So they're going to prioritize you. It makes a lot of sense. Having reviews, which everyone knows, you have to have a strong review strategy and you need to build sales velocity. So when we look at a term called bestseller ranking, having the velocity, having product to sell, and actually having people talking about the fact that they like your product are 3 of the key areas you need to push. So if you wanted to get into it, I'd say, Tom, come and chat to me and I'll give you all that you need to know. But what I would say is there's a ton of courses online. There's a lot of incredible communities. There's a lot of spaces that you can go to, but have a very clear idea as to what the volume looks like for the product that you want to sell. Do your research before, understand that it is a volume game. You want to be selling, as many products as you can, and by attracting the right keywords and by focusing on your specific brand or your niche, that is where you're going to see a lot more success.
So this is your first venture into being a founder and CEO. What has the last year been like for you personally, and how have you made waves?
Right. So I've had some less successful first starts, but I would say that this is definitely the first serious crack I've had at growing a business. And I would say it's funny that you asked that question. I actually have a title of a book that I might never write, but the title is a little bit long-winded and it probably needs a bit of workshop. Maybe you can help me through it, but it's the things no one told you when you didn't sign the waiver. So it's been a very interesting year, to put it lightly. I had an interview with our now CFO about a month ago, and her question to me was, how did you project the growth of the business? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I didn't expect in the first year of operations that I would be interviewing my CFO. So it's been a pretty wild ride, and having to go from 10, like anyone who's done it before, it's a very, I haven't had the luxury of the time. So I've had to adapt and grow a lot. And I've read a lot of books on it. I think the big shift for me is that I'm not in the agency game anymore. I'm not in the service delivery in terms of what I'm delivering. I'm in the leadership and management game now. And so everything that I do today has to shift towards being the best leader that I can possibly be, and absorbing as much information from my colleagues around me, from people, from chats that I'm having with guys like you, Tom, on how do I actually get there and stay ahead of the curve before, shit hits the proverbial fan.
So what advice do you have for people who are starting a business or growing a business in the middle of this pandemic? What advice do you have?
My advice would be to realize that you can't be good at everything. No one person on planet Earth is going to be the best at anything. I know where my shortcomings are. I am someone who is organized, but I'm not good operationally. If I was the one to both come up with the vision and direction of the business and try and run it at the same time, firstly, the company would have absolutely fallen apart by now, no question about it. But secondly, having it doesn't need to be a co-founder, but I have 2 incredible people who have been with me from the start, my founding team, and each of them are exceptional. My COO and the director of consulting, each of them almost serve as a filter. So I have 20 ideas a day. Maybe one of them, if I'm lucky, is a good one. They'll be the ones to tell me. You got to go into it with people that you trust. And at least for me, I tried the solopreneur route and it didn't work for me. And I would say that that's probably my advice, is have people that you trust that aren't just going to tell you your shit don't stink and that everything's great. Really, have people that are real and focus on what you're good at. I know that my skill set lies in helping build that vision, and also, being on things like this, Tom, and being the people person that I am, and having deep conversations and building relationships, not about the executional delivery of everything's going on in the business. I leave that to much smarter people.
So, as I said, I'm probably going to call this episode Scale, Scale, Scale. So, number one, you help your clients scale. It's what you do, it's what you sell. And you're in the middle of scaling a business yourself. So, if somebody has an established business and they're listening to this because the title of the episode was Scale, 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 how do they scale? In any industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So just to also give a little bit of visibility here too, some of the companies we're working with are much bigger than us. So even though we are at the point that we are at, we've been predicated or built on the foundation that the management consultants that we have are the best in the business at building out process and actually delivering for scale. So, I look to them as the experts, and I'm looking at what do I look at to actually help achieve this scale. Like I was saying before, having that process in your head is never going to serve you. So documenting it out and, having someone who's also not so emotionally invested, the way we look at it, the way I like to frame it when we talk about consulting is look at us as your business therapists. There's no one else that you can really talk to about your problems inside of your business that can really help you. And when you, as one of the employees in the business, has a view and a perception of one specific delivery, so does the next person who's on the next link of the chain. It's how do you actually quantify, validate, and understand what's happening in the business, and how do you actually start to plan for the future? So some of the things that you can look to do is it's all well and good to have your financial planning in order, but the way we're mapped out is we know what our org chart is going to look like for the next 3 years. We understand that in Q2 of 2021, we're going to need a new project manager attached to our digital delivery. There's nothing better than walking down a path that you've already paved, that you're simply making micro adjustments. So I would say my favorite quote, and one that we actually put on almost every presentation deck we deliver, is if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 5 sharpening my axe. And I would say that the one piece of advice is put the planning in, have the right data and information that you need about your business in there. And, if we want to talk really far down the line, we have an analytics dashboard that pulls in absolutely every bit of information that exists in our business, from our project management tool to our financials in Xero to our CRM to our recruitment CRM. And we track every single element. And we have 2 metrics that define whether we are safe or whether we are out of whack. So understand the truth or what's happening in your business. Don't leave it to the perception of people that are operating inside of it.
So one of the things we talked about before we started recording was the difference between what's urgent and what's important in your business. So can you define those two for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think what's probably whether it's your business owner in a business or even delivering a project inside of your workspace, the way it typically works is that all businesses, all projects, all initial steps always have to be built by people. We're not at that point where AI is at level where they're building everything and, we're just sitting and watching. So, when we talk about building an early concept, we have to really understand that what we have is the right framework, and there's something here. Once we get to a proof of concept, like you were saying about defining urgent versus important, usually the common trajectory looks like urgent task. Okay, I'm about to, and then urgent task, and then urgent task. But what you need to do is you need to actually have the documentation down, have the process mapped out, and understand how you can categorize it. You're always going to be stuck in urgent unless you understand what the direction of the business looks like. So I don't know if I answered your question exactly, but I think that that's really the key, is to actually understand what the vision looks like, because you won't know that it's urgent or important unless you have a direction.
Well, I know that, working for myself and being that solopreneur, my hair's on fire a lot of the time. And so it's urgent, urgent, urgent. And I lose sight, I think, of what I really need to do to grow the business. And so, my take on that is that you want to be working on the important stuff, and you don't want everything that happens to be, a dumpster fire that you have to put out.
I mean, we deal with that all the time. I think, when you talk about that as well, there's also a clear distinction that a lot of people aren't aware of, that they're actually, you at least have the awareness that, there's the dumpster fire going on and things are on fire and we need to put them out. But for a lot of people, they just think that that's how life should be. And so, one of the topics that I like to discuss with people is the real understanding of what is working in your business versus on your business. And so, if I'm to elaborate a little bit on what that is, like when you're working in your business, really what you're looking at is, your focus is very short term and what is the immediate delivery? What am I delivering today? We're talking about things where, if we've got a team or a big company, it's micromanagement of your team. So it's not about the processes that are in place. It's, I need you to deliver this today. And if I don't, then, we're not going to get there. I would say also, we'd also need to look at things like trust. Do you actually trust in your team to deliver? Or are you going to sit there and really watch over and be kind of a task driver? So, understanding if that's you and if you're actually focused on those short-term deliveries, if the roles inside of your business are very clearly defined, it's very hard for people to move forward unless they understand, like I've said, time and time again today even, is what does the future hold for me? What does it look like? So that would be how I would very much define the in the business.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if we're talking about working on your business and the differential there, it's the focus will shift. It's about the long-term growth and the planning around it. It's dealing with those important tasks because you understand what the roadmap looks like. It's also having systems in place to allow those that have a defined role to actually deliver what they are accountable and responsible for, and not just, again, putting out fire after fire after fire. So I think like one of the most important things before you even look and look to entertain whether you can scale your business is, am I someone who's working in it or am I working on it? Because healthy to me is someone that's driving the standards. They're focused on the leadership and the delivery, and they're pushing the business forward, as opposed to having something that is someone who's very focused on, more so in the business, where it's about the influence of personnel that exist in the business who have perceived values and they can't really drive the growth because, it's up to what's in my head versus what's in your head. And the truth is going to be probably somewhere in between.
So Yoni, this is fascinating. I have a couple more questions for you before I can let you go. But first, I have to thank the other sponsor of this episode. So this episode, like all of them, is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly, they take the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They set you up with the right equipment, training, and guidance to ensure that you sound amazing. Podfly does all the heavy lifting and that pesky technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing people who are out there making waves like Yoni Kozminski. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know that some of you do, jump over to podfly.net/coolthings and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this show. So Yoni, I used to call the show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. What is the coolest thing you're doing in your company right now?
Ooh, well, before I even tell you what that is, hook me up with Podfly. That is exciting stuff.
I got to tell you, they are the best vendor I've ever worked with in any area of any part of my career over 30 years. They are just a great company to do business with. Like any long-term relationship, we've worked together since episode 1. There's going to be times where I drop the ball. Maybe I'm late with an episode. There's going to be times where they drop the ball. Something doesn't happen. Maybe it's a miscommunication. They've always stepped up and made everything right. And what more can you say?
I mean, that's literally the rest of my evening is going to be spent on Podfly and seeing where we can take it.
Podfly.net/coolthings, and they give a discount to the people who listen to this show. By the way, not an affiliate link, but they do sponsor this show.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So on that note, around cool things, and I've been thinking for a second, what's the coolest thing that we've done? And this is going to sound a little cliche, but I've got to say that, when we look at what we do as a business, in either business, it's always about value creation. A lot of people are sitting there thinking like, what can I charge for this? What can I deliver? How much money can I make? And for me, the position is always, if you deliver good work and you actually help someone succeed in their delivery, then you're going to make money. Should be the byproduct, not what you're driving towards. So my favorite thing that we've done, and it's happened on several occasions, is that what happens in a consulting engagement is midway through, you typically have a steering committee where you get guidance on, is this the right direction? Are we pushing forward to finalize what the process maps look like, what the org chart looks like? And on, I think, 3 or 4 occasions now, the money that we've saved companies has been greater than the investment they've spent on us just to deliver the work before we've even delivered the output. So I don't know if that made total sense to you, but we saved companies more money than what it costs delivering not what our intended delivery was.
Well, that's what we call a bonus where I come from. That's a win-win bonus.
Absolutely.
So the other question I ask everybody before I let them go is, when you look out into the world of business, there's all kinds of business leaders. There's tons of people who are making waves and contributing to their companies and to their countries and to the world. When you look out there, who do you admire? Who do you say, wow, she or he, they're making waves and I like it?
Whew. I don't want to go down cliches here. There's a few people that I really, really respect, and it's not even just kind of their commercial standpoint. Like, the first person that jumped into my head was Elon Musk.
Number one answer in 6 years to that question is Elon Musk, but it's not a cliche. It's just a true answer.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll deviate here and I'll say that there's a few other people that have had enormous impact on my life, personally, professionally, and I probably wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for the content that they produce. So the first, and we chatted about this actually last week or earlier this week, Tom, Stephen R. Covey, who's no longer with us today, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, I have a book list that I recommend to people, and that's number 1 on my list every time. What he was able to deliver there was just life-changing for me.
It's interesting, when I'm interviewed, a question that's asked a lot is what book changed your life, or what book would you recommend? And that's my go-to answer. And I read that book 30 years ago when it first came out. But I think we talked about this the other day. It holds up in 2020.
On a level that is just, I don't even think the great man Stephen could have ever imagined how timeless that book is.
So I actually had the opportunity to interview one of his sons on the show a few years ago. So that was kind of good. So, hey, Yoni, if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, Yoni sounds interesting and his companies sound interesting, how do people find you?
So the easiest way right now is to check out Multiply Me. That's MII.com. And if you want to book in a call, at the moment, you'll get me. So you can always ask for me if it's not, but you can book in a call. We'll be launching the weareescala.com website. Escala means scale in Spanish. So that also from next week should be a great place to look.
So what you're saying is this episode should be titled Escala, Escala, Escala.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, I only speak English. We'll stick with scale, scale, scale. So thank you so much for being a guest here on Making Waves at Sea Level. I greatly appreciate you. And thank you to everybody in the audience, because I say it every episode, why would we do the podcast if nobody listened? The audience grows, the audience shrinks, we're growing again. So please do me a favor. Tell a friend. When I talk to people and they say, oh, I love your show, I say, how'd you find it? They say, my boss told me, my friend Yoni told me, somebody told me about it. And I'm like, awesome. So the only way I grow this show is if you go talk about it on social media or in person. You can go do that right now.
We'll be all over that.
I was going to say, I'll wait. Go tell people now. Okay, thank you.
Dusty, you want to?
That's right. He has a dog. He's gonna get the dog to bark. Woof, and that translates to making waves.
I don't know if you can see it there.
The other request I have for everybody is go and leave a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast love, because a nice review, a little positive few words about the show goes a long, long way. Hey, we're gonna be back in a couple of days with an interview with somebody else making waves like Yoni Kozminski. But in the meantime, go out there, flex your own entrepreneurial muscles. Make sure that your career ladder is against the right wall, because there's nothing worse than climbing that career ladder only to discover at the top it was in the wrong place all along. I know, because I did that for a long time. And while you're at it, go out there, have some fun. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Making Waves at Sea Level podcast. Without your listening to these in-depth conversations, there would be no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter and Instagram at tomsinger.